Hello and welcome to Starstream Gamer channel. This time I'd like to talk about Vsync. Without Vsync you will get screen tearing. It is a visual artifact which happens due to the lack of synchronization between a display and a gaming PC or console. Single frames shown on a display literally break because they consist of information drawn from two or more frames provided by a GPU. So, to eliminate screen tearing, you need to turn on Vsync. There are 5 types of Vsync. 4 of them always introduce some amount of delay called input lag. This means that the game controls become a bit less responsive. This is the price you have to pay for getting rid of screen tearing. The first one is the most common nowadays. It is called triple buffered Vsync. It simply locks the frame rate of your PC to the refresh rate of your display. For example, if your display refresh rate is 60 Hz, then it will lock the frame rate to 60 frames per second. As long as your GPU provides more than 60 FPS, it works well. You receive silky smooth image and no additional input lag. But as soon as the frame rate falls below its target, that's where problems begin. As there is no synchronization between display and PC, stuttering is being introduced, as well as additional input lag. This makes gaming experience rough and uneven. The second one is adaptive Vsync. It is quite common as well. This one performs exactly the same as triple buffered Vsync when your frame rate is higher than the refresh rate of your display. But when it dips below 60 frames per second, Vsync simply disables itself. So there is no stuttering introduced. But in return you will get screen tearing. Even if the frame rate is only 1 frame below target, 59 FPS for example, you will still see these breaks, which usually happen right in the middle of the screen. It doesn't look good. Screen tearing may be introduced during very slight and short dips. So sometimes, even if a monitoring application shows flat and stable frame rate, you may still see these breaks on your screen. So while adaptive Vsync doesn't introduce stuttering and additional delay, it is not ideal. Though sometimes it may be a good alternative to triple buffered Vsync. The third one is rarely used in modern games. I know only one game from 2019 which uses it. It is a Plague Tale Innocence. This type is called double buffered Vsync. When your PC cannot provide the target frame rate and dips below it, then the target frame rate halves. You will get rock solid 30 FPS if your display refresh rate is 60 Hz. When your GPU will be able to provide more than 60 frames per second again, the target frame rate will become 60 FPS again. This method totally eliminates stuttering and tearing. But going from 60 to 30 frames per second is quite a significant difference. It greatly increases input lag and makes controls much less responsive. The fourth one is popular among professional gamers. It is called Vsync. When your frame rate dips below the target, for example 60 FPS, it functions in the same way as triple buffered Vsync. But when your GPU can provide more than 60 FPS, Vsync won't lock it to 60 FPS. It will let your GPU provide as much frames as it can. In return, you will get more responsive controls. Because, unlike other types of Vsync, this one doesn't introduce any delay at all. This really helps those players who participate in competitive gaming, as they need as responsive controls as possible. The biggest disadvantage of this method is the fact that your GPU will always be hitting its limits. This will drastically reduce its lifetime. The fifth one is the most advanced type. It is called FreeSync, developed by AMD. But to take advantage of this method, you need a display which supports FreeSync. FreeSync algorithm is very smart. It dynamically adapts the display refresh rate to variable frame rate provided by a GPU. When your PC is unable to provide target frame rate, let's say 120 FPS, and can produce, for instance, only 115 FPS, the refresh rate of the display lowers down to 115 Hz as well. so there is no stuttering and no additional input lag introduced. There is also Vsync developed by NVIDIA. It basically does the same thing as FreeSync, but it is less common. That's all I wanted to share with you for this time. Good luck and till next time!